Fuck. All right, we're rolling.
Rolling.
Planet B
Presents.
Cult and Culture Podcast.
Welcome to episode 23 of the Cult and Culture Podcast. I'm Justin Pearson.
And I'm Luke Hinshaw.
This episode features two of our friends from Napalm Death, Barney Greenway and Shane Embury. Man, it was awesome to have those legends on this episode. Really cool, informative.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, so you weren't able to make it. You were up in Los Angeles working.
Yeah.
So shout out to Tommy Meehan for helping engineer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a wild time because there was a show that Def Club was playing with Napalm Death here in San Diego at the Soda Bar, which is just a little absurd due to the size of the venue. But yeah, I had to run around town and grab those guys. I also drive a Mini, so it's really small. It's like picking up more than
you
one.
fit everybody in there?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, all four of us. It was pretty amusing. So yeah, we grabbed everyone and got over here and did it. And the podcast that you guys will hear was fun and very. It was just great and informative, and I think we covered some interesting topics and ground. But the show was very interesting for me personally because, the Soda Bar is really small and the stage is like a circular thing. And they didn't want to strike the drums, so they left the kit and all the amps and stuff. So there was not a whole lot of room for 5-piece Def Club. So we set up, and of course, me being the singer, I was kind of like the last variable.
Yeah.
So I got this like little 2x2 space to stand on. And so I think their sound engineer was really upset about the situation, or maybe not their sound engineer, their tech or their roadie or whatever. He was pretty upset, and it wasn't really our fault, obviously, but I don't know. Yeah, whatever. The venue is small, and it is what it is, and it was going to be what it was going to be. So for whatever reason, they gave you the drink tickets, and I had one of those hard kombuchas.
Oh, nice.
And so I only had one piece of pizza from TNT Pizza. If you're in San Diego, that place is probably I don't even like pizza. Sorry, everybody, but that pizza place rules. And he had one piece of pizza, and I think not a lot of food in my stomach. So when I had that hard kombucha, which is like 7% alcohol, I got fucked up right away.
Wow.
So anyhow, we performed, and there was nowhere for me to go. So of course I was like on the bar, and I stepped in the tray with the limes and stuff, which is probably a good thing because hey, people that drink, like, you probably don't like that shit's pretty gross. Like they just, well, it used to be like when I worked at a bar, they they'd handle money and then the fruit and like all these fucked up germs. So now it's probably good that I put my foot in it. Maybe they had to clean it out or something.
Well, the alcohol should clean it up.
I guess it would kill the germs. Yeah. Either way, sorry for the bartender. I did not mean to do that. I fully was like not. I mean, I definitely was not all there, And so the performance happened anyhow, and like Scott, our drummer, was like, "Man, you were fucking up everything. You were off time and this and this and that." I'm like, "What? I don't think so, man." And then someone like tagged me on Instagram or something in a video, and it was like, dude, there was like the verse, changed, and it went into the bridge, and then it went to like the next part, and I was like still singing the verse. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
I wish I would have seen that.
Yeah, I was terrible.
You probably would have given me your drink ticket and not had that kombucha if I'd gone.
Yeah. I mean, I had more than one ticket. It only took one for me to get to.
I wish.
Yeah, I'm a cheap date.
Yeah.
Anyhow, the performance happened. I think people might have liked it. I don't know. Maybe they have low standards. Anyhow, Napalm Death killed it, and again, it was just really rad to spend a little bit of time with those people, and then just to share the stage with them. It was awesome.
Right on.
So, without further ado, let's dive into this podcast. Enjoy.
I will.
First thing, can you guys just introduce yourselves so we have that, so people know when they're listening.
Just like an ID kind of thing.
Yeah, whatever. You can say whatever you want, but
Okay.
yeah, just so people know voice-wise who is who.
Okay. Hello, this is Barney from Napalm Death. Very unassuming and always willing to talk.
And this is Shane from Napalm Death. Sometimes talking.
Yeah.
And yeah, there we go.
All right, thanks. So, okay, thanks for being here, you guys, and I really appreciate it. And I was telling Barney in the car earlier, like, I try to not focus on the typical things that people would talk about, like, what are your top 5 records, and like that shit is fine or whatever. But like, I'm always interested in like the underlying stuff, like what happens in your brain that made you do these things. And so I have two things that I would like to start off with for you, and one of them is sort of the lighter thing, which is your stage presence, because you have a pretty unique and energetic and wild stage presence that, like, I mean, as a vocalist myself or a performer of some sort, like I always focus on people's I don't want to say like antics, but like your
dynamics.
Like what you bring, like what happens, like because, like when the first snare hit starts and all of a sudden you're in the zone, like because to like the layman's sense, like the normal person's sense, like the band's called Napalm Death, and it's it seems like grim and negative, but like you are not at all.
No, it's not.
So where the fuck does that come from?
No, to be honest, a lot of it came from watching videos when that's all we could see back in the day of US hardcore bands.
Yeah. Oh.
That's, like SSD and bands like that. I used to see them, and I'd be like, how can they do this while playing music at the same time?
Yeah.
And I try not to directly copy it, but it's just, if in your mind, you kind of imagine when you go on stage, it's flicking a switch.
Sure.
And then you just fucking go. You know what I mean? And you make it go.
Yeah.
Because it has to.
Sure, yeah.
Kids aren't coming to gigs paying whatever they pay these days to watch somebody just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Why would you do
Yeah.
that?
I mean, they do pay for that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they do.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, it's my responsibility as part of Napalm Death, as the collective, to make it fucking fire, on all cylinders, So that's what I try to do. And it just, there's no rhyme or reason to it, really. It's just I'm kind of in I suppose, in a bit of a groove now, to where I just, my body just kind of goes, you know what I mean, into certain directions. Sometimes it can be a little bit catastrophic, because, I've broken bones, and all sorts, but I'd rather it be messy and chaotic than just boring and uniform.
Sure.
I'm not interested in that for Napalm Death at all.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
No offense to the bone breaking, but the bands that I've seen in my lifetime of where they broke a bone, I was like, that was the fucking coolest set I've ever seen. And not that I want you to break a bone, but
I definitely don't want to.
Those people are going at that level. Like that's where they're performing at. Like they're not fucking around. Like that could happen, and that makes it. It's like at 110%,
Napalm, in my humble opinion, Napalm, the groundswell of the music, the fucking concrete mix of bass and the horrible guitars and the drums that are, kind of a roller coaster going off the rails a little bit, that helps me to make that, if that wasn't there.
Oh, yeah.
If it was a normal, for example, just... for argument's sake, a normal run-of-the-mill metal band, it just wouldn't lend itself to that particular.
So you're talking about like the absurdity, I guess, right? Musical absurdity. I mean, that's
perhaps in some ways, yeah.
I mean that in a good way.
Versus convention.
Sure,
yeah. In that respect.
I would love to just like call out bands, but I'm not. I don't want to do
that.
That's not.
Yeah, that's
but I
not
saw.
the object.
I won't say the band, but I saw this band perform the other night, and it was they're like an older legendary band from the mid '80s, and they were great. Their drummer is a friend of mine who's playing for them, and he made it awesome for me. But the rest of the band, I was just like, man, you guys are just fucking phoning it in. It was really, I don't know, and I think maybe I have a high standard for what I want to see in a performance, and so that's an important thing. So like I think the last time I saw you guys was with Cattle Decapitation,
okay.
and again like Travis is a phenomenal singer and performer, and I think that's really important. And it was pretty interesting to see a bill with, not that there's a, this might be a hard one to avoid saying the wrong way, but it's not that it's a competition, but when you're on tour with other artists that are pushing some kind of limit, it makes you inherently try to push harder too.
You know what? I look at it a little differently to that. Actually, I've like, competition to me is a negative thing, actually, because
Well, I wasn't saying that.
no, but from the point of watching other bands, I'm interested in what Napalm does, not interested in what anybody else does, and I don't mean that in a confrontational way at all. I mean that I'm focused on what,
your own shit.
what I do, or what we do. Say not what I do, what we do.
Yeah.
So, because I think there's a danger where you might sort of go, oh, look what they're doing, we should do that.
It can water down your perception in some ways.
So I agree with you, and I think that was my problem. I think I might have articulated myself wrong, because there was a point where there was like a tour that the Locust did with Airborne Radar and Lightning Bolt, and every band was unique in its own. There was no way you could look at one of the other bands, couldn't look at the other one and be like, oh shit, we need to step it up. But it was just this like their own fucking righteousness on stage made you just be like, yes, like we just saw that. This is awesome.
I understand.
Like a team of
Sometimes it can be a collective.
Yeah.
That kind of has almost like
feeder, like everyone feeds off.
That's kind of what I meant when I saw you guys. I was like, oh, there was like,
I misunderstood.
Yeah, like not because I do think that there are a lot of artists that do hold that competitive aspect or address that for themselves, but I meant it in the complete opposite, that it was more of like a positive, inspiring thing, like these fuckers are bringing it and we're gonna bring it, and this is like us, everyone together making a night.
If you get like a good feeling from that, then you tend to go on.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's when you're playing with some bands in festivals and nothing to do with them, but you're like,
Well, it's like I suppose it's an obvious thing to say maybe for us, but I think the Melvins did that for us. Because they're a very different band to us, kind of polar opposites
totally,
in some ways.
Yeah.
But in terms of the organic, the sort of way they deliver, if you like, for want of a better word, that's completely. I think it's
them and Melt Banana. Everything was just like
So it's kind of like the best of each. I don't even know what genres are. That shit doesn't make sense to me. But the best of every, like, Melvins are, you said they're the polar opposite, so they're the best of that, and you guys are the best of this, and like Mel Banana obviously is the fucking best of whatever they are. Like that shit's really important, and also. That's when people get psyched. I mean, when Dead Cross played that show with you guys and Melvins, it was like, oh, we were so psyched. It was like perfect to be able to be on that show, And,
sure.
Or whatever. Any time that people get to team up with like-minded or some other sort of like, I don't know, like the other tens of the world, like the ones that are just like up there, and just like perfected some sort of craft, whatever you want to call it.
No, I mean, and kind of further to that, really, I've always been of the mind that you play to your strengths, what you consider to be your strengths, because in the end, you're the one that's got to go out there and do it, so you should always do that and never water it down, you should try this because that other band did it and it's it's given them all this success. That's not, that's not, what, you're missing the point, you know what I mean, of what it is.
Sure. Man, not to change too many directions, but there was this, and at this point I don't even know what album it was that you guys released, but someone at Decibel had sent me some tracks to they like said review these tracks, and they didn't tell me what it was, and I remember like I don't even remember what album it was for you guys, but I don't even know who the other bands were, but I remember there was this one. I was like, dude, what the fuck? This band sounds like Napalm Death. That's kind of lame that they sound just like Napalm Death, I mean, it's fucking killer, but like, why? And then they're like, oh, it's Napalm Death. And I was like, no way! Oh, shit! That was fucking great. But I was like also kind of relieved, like, oh, it's not.
Yeah, they're kind of pitfalls, them things. I got asked to do a couple. I'm like, what am I going to do?
But I was trying to not be a dick. I was just like, whoever this band is, they fucking nailed it because it sounds just like Napalm, So I guess I wasn't that big of an asshole, but I felt kind of bad at thinking like, if this is some other band and I'm like trashing them, saying they're like ripping you guys off. But so yeah, the other thing I really would like to talk about, which maybe might be, I don't know, it might be an odd one, but it's especially like the sort of political and social political side of the band's ethics and standpoint on things trips me out, because you guys do fall into the metal world, the metal community more, or not more, but like as well as like the punk and hardcore one. And I think that the metal community is just, and no offense to the metal community, but like, man, fuck a lot of those people, because there is like a lot of white nationalist and like homophobic.
Yeah,
just
some, but I would say it's a minority, these days. I mean, I will say from my, sorry, I didn't want.
Well, no, I mean, I guess I kind of just was like, whatever, like it's cool, but
it is there. It is there. It's definitely there.
And I learned it like hard playing with, and I love Dave Lombardo, obviously, but like playing in Dead Cross with him, I learned it hard seeing the shit that he has to endure from like some Slayer fans and stuff. And like, it's just fucked up how I think, I don't know, like there's like the metal community isn't very welcoming to certain things. And so I would trip out when I would see you play and you would speak about some of the topics of the songs and stuff, and I never saw or heard or witnessed backlash, and I want to know, like, if you do have to deal with that kind of shit, or if there's a way you can navigate around it.
Yeah, I would say in the early days when I first joined, first 4 or 5 years, well, we did a couple of American tours, and it was pretty miserable.
Because you were with someone else?
No, because we were talking
about
obviously expressing the ideas. Why
so
would
what,
you not?
What year was this? Like
92.
Okay.
Yeah, 91, 92, wasn't it?
But that was equally to do with there was a big upsurge in it would almost become like a social norm to be like a Aryan nations kind of person.
Oh yeah.
And so of course I was completely opposed to that as a human being, let alone anything else, and so we would obviously there would be exchanges, and there was quite a bit of violence,
like coming to the like Skins, Nazis.
Yeah.
We had that here in San Diego
not
too.
Not just boneheads, but just people that weren't boneheads that were sympathetic to that idea.
Sure.
So it was miserable, at points. But what can you do? You can't it's not like you're trying to. It's not like a great big macho, chest beating exercise.
Yeah.
But you've got to, as a human being, I think you've got to face up to this stuff. You've got to face it down. And I don't mean that in a macho, aggressive, confrontational way. I mean, you've got to find ways to combat it.
But with the more knowledge or wit or whatever you used as your weapon, the more frustrated people that don't have the ability to the intellect, and they result to violence.
But it's like, as the years have gone by, that kind of opposition has gone,
Like, so maybe people just know what to expect from you guys?
Well, no, I just think that people have probably wised up a little bit,
and
understood that that stuff is not, if you believe in human beings and humanity, that stuff is not, not going to do you any good, in it, as a collective. But, I mean, it's like, it's a weird, I kind of sit on a stool in the middle sometimes, because I think to myself, well, everybody's allowed to have their ideas. There shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that. I should be allowed to shut people down, and this is because that's not what I want to do. But it's obviously there are certain things, there are certain levels where things go to where you just have to say no, enough. You know what I mean? It's like that's not a good thing, the obvious things, racism, homophobia, and stuff like that. So I mean, above and beyond that, it's not like, certainly these days when I talk about that stuff on stage, it's not for me to be confrontational, expecting somebody to, but it's just putting the ideas out of the table. It's almost like taking a great big marker pen and underlining them a little bit,
Yeah.
Because I think I think that
that's a good analogy. Though.
Yeah, not that the sole responsibility lies with me.
Yeah.
It lies with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm just another person,
Sure.
really, you know, but I'm trying to, you know, put those ideas on the table for the people that might have not considered them lately, if you want to put it like that. You know, I know that's quite a mild way to put it, you know, but it's like, I think it's important. And these things are happening at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, for example, one of the big things at the moment for me is the suppression of women's choices in the US, you know, with the healthcare and abortion and stuff. Yeah. And I just noticed the other day that a young girl, you know, a single mum, I think, got arrested in Texas.
Yeah.
On a murder charge.
Yep.
For a I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
You know, with she lost the baby. I think I don't know what the.
She's being tried.
Yeah. I mean, think about that.
Yeah,
that's like dark medieval fucking. You
Yeah.
know? So I think it's really important. As a man, you should stand up in solidarity with that because it's a human issue, primarily a women's issue, but it's a men's issue as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It has to be.
But especially like, well, okay, so there's that element, which Texas is fucked. I mean, sorry, Texas, if anybody's listening, but like it's fucked there. And I mean, I remember like there was a series of tours that I've done where we had Planned Parenthood who would come out from locally at each show and table each show. And in Texas, we did, you know, it was like the whole U.S., but in Texas, they were not allowed to come out. But not like they weren't allowed to come out, but every venue owner, like even Emo's, which is like one of the coolest long-standing venues, they were like, we can't have Planned Parenthood set up and table here because the like whatever city officials will notify the people that own the lease, so like the landlords, and they'll lose their business license.
How weird is that?
It's some fucking crazy as shit. But now it's like it's gotten even worse, obviously, because that was just like, oh, you can't have this organization here, but now it's becoming
the scary
illegal.
thing about it is, though, it's not just confined to the obvious candidates now. It's starting to spread states wide.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the people are lobbyists are getting into the lawmakers, you know, and making them pass these archaic bills. You know, I follow it all the time. You know, because I say I work with some like, you know, women's organisations in the UK a little bit, and so I see the way it's all going. You know, this is not good. Yeah, you know, it's not good at all.
Aside from the racist issues, there is the women's reproductive rights, and then there's like LGBTQ plus stuff. Those are the huge issues that are really, really coming under fire right now, where it is combative in a lot of ways. You know,
see, it's the here and the now. That's the point I was trying to make. These aren't generalized issues. This is the here and the now stuff. You know,
but I mean, man, it's like I would love to assume. I don't know. I mean, I guess I trip out because you are able to be very vocal, and for like, especially like with the Locust, I mean, we would have so many problems with people where we in the audience, and not necessarily like neo-Nazis or something, but just people just being genuine dicks, you know, and so we would have to silence them from even engaging with us and by making music or sounds where no one could have dialogue with us, so we could control the narrative, because it wasn't about like a free-for-all. So like let's say everyone here is really cool except there's like two fuckheads out there, and they're the ones that are like making it known that they're, you know,
it's a tricky thing, because again I go back to what I said earlier. I don't want to shut people down. Yeah, that's not my intention. Yeah, you know, I believe as one of our fundamental principles is of free expression. You know, because that's what we're fighting for. Is free expression. You know, so it's like you can't kind of pick and choose. So I get it, you know, but it's so I used to be very confrontational, that I'd be straight away like fuck you, you know. But these days I'm like, no, like let them speak, you know, and then just sort of work around it a little bit, you know.
What do you mean by work around it? Like just
just kind of, as you were saying, like kind of get the band sort of playing again, know, and move the music forward, you know.
But you would make sure like you have the last say, really, right?
Well,
like,
it's not like that, you know. But it's,
I would. I mean, I would be like, I'm gonna.
Yeah, but I would say something. Yeah, whether it would be the last say, I don't know. But
I guess for me, I'm always trying to. I guess I'm just a dick. I'm always trying to like make fun of that person, and then I'll cut out. You know, like. You know, it's like restricting them on social media or something. You can't comment after I said the last thing. Fuck you. This is my shit. Like, we're here to perform, and you're just like this dick that's fucking making it like a bummer for everybody, you know, just whatever their antics are.
Yeah,
I
mean, I try to use a bit of comedy. I kind of lighten the situation a little bit
Yeah.
because I don't mind a bit of comedy, you know,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
audience people and that. It lightens the mood.
Yeah,
a little
sure,
because obviously,
yeah.
it's not like by its very nature, the music's not stiff and stilted and conformist. I suppose if you want to use that phrase, it is very free flowing. So sometimes it lighten the mood.
Yeah.
Even if you're not even
Yeah.
if there's not people heckling, it's nice to have a bit of
sure.
rapport, you know.
I know.
Yeah.
I always try to check myself on that.
Yeah, because it's not all dark and shade.
It's
you
I
know,
know.
life is a
Fuck,
bit
I
of
need to learn that
everything,
lesson.
So yeah.
You should do like a master class on how to lighten the mood.
I don't think I've got anything to teach anybody.
It just comes in time. It just comes in time, though, Bonks. I mean,
Yeah.
in the past, that time we played Nazi punks fuck off
Yeah,
straight away.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then we got fucking bum rushed by
Yeah.
about 30 skinheads. And we had
Oh, seriously?
No, it's more than that. It's the whole audience.
Well, you
You talk
said-
about Harpo's in
No,
Detroit.
there wasn't. Well, yeah, that was
Oh,
quite,
no,
there
the
was that as well.
Allentown. Yeah,
Allentown was the one where
Pennsylvania, yeah.
there were a couple of bands, and there was like 400 people. But there was the old brigade of like Aryan whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Barney,
Kind of
yeah.
like, but the pit would happen, and they're on the outskirts pushing the young kids in.
Yeah.
And of course, we came on and played Nazi punk straight off, and fucking mad, and they rushed
Yeah.
the stage. And we
Oh,
were
like first song of the set?
yeah, because
Yeah, because back then we're like, fuck it, let's do it straight away and see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
when it went in, fucking next thing you know, it's like
And then next thing you know, it's a full-on riot.
we're
you know.
shutting the
Seriously?
door, going, yeah,
Yeah, like
shut-
basses were off, and like Mitch, our old guitarist, who was
oh yeah.
fiery, like a switch like
Yeah.
that. He had like a fucking drum or something. He was
Yeah,
hitting
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
with a drum,
Whoa.
you know, it just,
Yeah.
I mean, like looking back, we can laugh about it, but
Yeah.
also
It was pretty. It was quite scary.
Oh,
at the time.
yeah, it was scary at the time, and I don't want to really violence is not.
No.
It's never to be condoned. Really,
Yeah.
I don't want to. That's the other thing. I don't want to get to that stage these days. I
Yeah.
try to be a pacifist.
Yeah.
I've been trying for fucking years.
Yeah.
And I slip up. I think you do.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like, the world as a whole needs to learn how
Yeah.
to fucking deal with each other and other people. And I'm not. It's not exactly setting a great example to just go and punch somebody in
know.
the face,
Yeah.
because it's not.
I don't mean to I probably have told the story to other people like a million times, but it was a really interesting lesson for me because the Locust did a bunch of tours with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and it was great, and we are like family with them, like everybody together. But once we got to the UK, I don't know if it's because like there's like the Weekly Enemy or something, but whatever it is, they were like massive, and this is when I don't know, maybe Fear to Tell, one of their albums was coming out. Anyhow, we were doing this, we toured with them, we were direct support, and their fans were the most violent audience we've ever encountered in
Really?
our lives. Yeah, only in the UK.
Yeah.
And it was like so bad, like people were just hucking full glasses of pints of beer at us, and like I broke this bone, and people were just fucking us up, and we had to like after a while we had to get umbrellas to open up to cover our pedal boards and shit because everything was getting damaged, and it was really kind of wild to think that that's the audience because there's not it's not like, oh, it's a metal show or a hardcore show and there's skinheads or these fucking shitheads like moshing. It was like like this pop band, the IAS, but they were like so fucked towards us. And there was one night where we were getting pelted, and we had this place in our set where there's this pause, and our drummer Gabe got up on stage and he vomited sometimes from playing, So anyhow, the stress I think makes him vomit. So he got up and vomited in this pint glass that hit him in the head, and he puked on it, and he was about to throw it in the crowd, and I could just watch the younger people that were up front, like, I just was like, we couldn't find the perpetrators, like it was just like, what do you do at that point? Like, we can't, like, this is so violent towards us, and we were asked to be here, and what do we? But he had a lot of power because he had this glass of vomit, and no one wants vomit on him. But he poured it on himself, and then we finished playing the set, and it felt like a weird statement, in a sense, like in retrospect, because I think at the time, I remember like standing there and thinking like, fuck, if he throws that vomit, it's gonna hit like these younger people or these these the kids, and like they're not the ones. And he luckily was on the same page and knew that he couldn't hit the right audience members, so he did it on himself, poured it on himself, and then jumped down and we played. But as soon as we were done, security was like, we got to get you out of the venue right now. We have to get you to leave, because people wanted to kill us.
Me, talking about that and that kind of gig, because but I mean, going back to the original thing, because it's just kind of popped up in my head a little bit. I mean, any scene, if you want to call it that, it's just a microcosm of the world outside.
Yeah.
It's nothing special, it's not.
Yeah.
And I mean that. I don't mean that in a condescending way.
Yeah.
Any scene is just a microcosm of the world outside.
Sure.
So you're going to get some people that think this way, other people that think that way, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I will say about your point about the metal community. The experiences I've had in those kind of situations have largely been like actually really positive. I've actually seen more awareness about racism and homophobia in certain settings in the metal community than I have in other places. I mean, the punk scene was also fucking negative. At points, back in the day and at other different points. All scenes have issues with different things.
Sure.
And it always sounds a bit trite, breaking things down into like scenes, but for the purposes of the comparison, of metal versus hardcore or whatever, I mean, that's people and that's people, and there's going to be different perspectives and different positive things, different negative things, and so I think sometimes it's a bit a bit of a misnomer to say, the metal community is more ignorant than this. It's not quite that.
Yeah,
I would say by any stretch, actually.
Yeah, because the punk community is the same way. Yeah, and I think punk was like got off to a bad start because of like, and no offense to Sid Vicious, but like a dude that's a nihilist wearing a swastika T-shirt is like the poster boy of a musical genre. Like it's not going to be as progressive as we'd like it to be.
But then they would say that whole thing, as I've always been, the things I've learned about is that was their art statement.
Sure.
Because obviously with Malcolm McLaren and Vivian Westwood and the Shop and all that stuff, that was they always kind of say, the swastika was not meant as it was actually just a shock thing.
Yeah.
But then. Yeah, people take it different. I mean, I certainly would never go anywhere fucking near one, you know what I mean? At all. But, obviously minds think in different ways.
Sure.
So I do try to always understand, what the...
Well, there's consequences of that. Like, I think that artwork maybe I don't know, like empowered or emboldened like people that did see the swastika as a fascist symbol and were gravitated towards it.
Of that, there's no question. You know what I mean? But it's like how it's employed can be looked at from different angles. But I would certainly, and because of course I would always say, well, I'm not the one that was at the brunt of when this was really, really allowed to run riot. And people were murdered. Jews, Romany gypsies, homosexuals. There's a whole host of people. So I wasn't on the receiving end of it. So therefore I can't really understand why it means so much to these people. I do understand it, but I've also not got the direct experience of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can definitely understand, why,
I mean, the symbol itself is inherently was never that.
No.
But it was taken.
Yeah, it was taken. That's what
peace symbol initially.
Yeah, well, that's what the National Socialists did in Germany. Is they adopted symbols that they knew they could kind of manipulate for their own ends. Because let's face it, the swastika as a religious symbol, as a spiritual symbol, was actually a very populist thing. It would attract people, to it. The original symbol that Shane's talking about. So I guess Hitler and the architects of that system were like, we can use this, you know what I mean? And that's why it became what it became, as far as I understand it anyway,
What about, like, I don't know if the whole band stands behind this, but your animal rights stuff that you're into. I
Yeah.
mean, that seems kind of like, I mean, that seems also like a problematic thing for a lot of fans, right? I mean,
No, not so much. I mean, I think, like, obviously I'm speaking for everybody in the band, but
Yeah.
everybody understands, I think, in the band, cruelty to animals,
Yeah.
you know, what it entails
Yeah.
and all the rest of it. You know, mine goes a little deeper, you know.
Sure.
I think,
Like
you know, my
ALF
personal
and-
belief is that like humankind is so arrogant to think it can control another
yeah.
species,
Yeah.
you know, and use it for its own ends.
Yeah.
You know, that's my understanding, which is a few steps further on, you know, but I think everybody in the band understands.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's just but I don't know, you know, I've always said, my thing has always been, I would always encourage, in terms of, well, I guess from the dietary perspective, I would always encourage people to be vegan. I'd say, yeah, you should do it, you know,
Yeah.
because it's good for you,
Yeah.
and it's like for if the planet's worth saving, veganism is actually quite a significant component.
If it's
in
worth
that,
saving.
you know? Yeah, if it's worth
Yeah.
saving. But but I would never force it on people.
Sure.
Or attempt. I can't. It's not in my power to do that.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So my thing has always been like, everybody should be educated about their food, know where it comes from, you know, and what this fast food restaurants, how the production is,
Yep.
you know, where it's coming from, and all the rest of it. But from then on, you make your own choices.
Yeah.
You know. And people come up to me sometimes and go, yeah, you know, I was vegetarian, I was vegan for a little bit, but that was years ago. So you probably hate me now. About, you know,
yeah.
it's like what you did was a really positive thing
Yeah,
for you,
at that,
you
yeah.
know, and you've got an understanding of
Sure.
it. So then you can, in the future, if you go back to that and you think about it some more, maybe you'll do it again.
Sure,
you know,
yeah.
Or people come up and say, "Oh, I'm vegetarian. I know that's not enough for you." It's like,
That's a
How-
wild
How can
statement.
you assume
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
You know, now what you're doing is actually a step
Yeah.
in a certain direction.
Sure.
You know, more power to your
Yeah.
elbow. You know.
Yeah, it's like, you know, people would say, I occasionally have said that to me, and it's like, well, my mom eats meat. I feed my dog raw turkey, you know,
Yeah.
like I love my mom and my dog, and that's their, you know, their thing, whatever. But it is interesting. But you're, I mean, I don't know, you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to,
No,
but
it's
like
fine.
I've seen, like, I think I've seen photos of you wearing like shirts with ALF and Hunt
Yeah.
Saboteurs.
The
right?
ALF Hunt
yeah.
Saboteurs,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
those
yeah.
are like, seem, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if they're very active in the States, but it seems like more in the UK that they are.
Yeah.
Organizations. I mean, are those organizations that you work with or have aligned?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, Hunt Saboteurs is basically, well, they do various things, but they basically monitor, report, and stop hunting that is illegal
Okay.
in the UK. So fox hunting was banned, thankfully,
Yeah.
5 years ago. But there are
Only
loopholes.
5 years ago.
5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
It might
like
be
not
10
many.
years
Yeah.
ago,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mind's not. You know.
Yeah.
But but there are loopholes around it, like trail hunting and stuff, where they will basically set the scent of a fox and the hounds will follow it. But the hunts people are really clever, so what they'll do, they'll set the scents off in areas where they know there's heavy fox populations, and so then when the hounds, of course, go in to find like foxholes and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and they just kill foxes and fox cubs.
Yeah.
And then the hunts have got to get it. Oh, it was an accidental kill.
Yeah.
It clearly fucking wasn't.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
because your hounds and your horses are in this area for a certain reason. So Hunt Saboteurs do that at great risk to themselves. You know, some of them have been really severely hurt. you
So they
know,
put the
from-
traps in the holes, and then the humans reach in there and get their.
No, they'll send the hounds out.
Oh, the hounds. Okay,
The
yeah.
hounds, you know, so packs of
Oh,
hounds.
sure.
But there's also other things they do. They hair coursing, which is also illegal. You know, they will stop hair coursing. They will go and sabotage the hair coursing.
And by sabotage, is it ever violent, or is
Well,
it just...
well, see, this is the thing. This is the myth about hunt saboteurs. Hunt saboteurs aren't violent.
Uh-huh.
You know, they will go and use tactics to stop hunts going. But what then happens is they face violent opposition from the
hunters?
themselves.
Oh, well, they also have like weapons and stuff. Yeah.
Hunters have groups of people, the heavies that follow them. We call them heavies in the UK. So they've got people that you know
Oh, yeah.
will follow them around, and if there's any sabbing that goes on. Sabbing's like the
Yeah.
short term.
Yeah.
Those people will go after the sabs. You
Yeah.
know? I mean, and people have been hurt by, really seriously hurt by riders like kicking, people on horseback, like literally kicking people, or the horses like kicking sabs and stuff.
Whoa.
So it's very, it can be quite. I've been sabbing myself.
Yeah.
So I know what it's like.
Whoa.
But I mean, the ALF, I mean, they were the ALF. One of the things for me that I particularly thought was a good thing was industrial sabotage. So research labs and stuff, they would, use certain methods to shut down the labs. And I think if it's to hurt people, to stop something like that is not kind of defeats the object.
Sure.
But
sure.
industrial sabotage, I personally don't have a problem with that. So
like
let's just say
property, like destroying property or whatever.
Is it
Research?
Yeah.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I guess that I would not wish violence.
No.
Well, occasionally. Okay, so this might be a weird philosophical thing because I do yoga a lot, and I one of the things that I always trip out about, for one, I feel like it's and I mean, I don't know, I feel like it's a bit of a, if I feel, this is no offense to any of the yoga instructors and stuff, but they often will wrap up a class with like, let's wish peace on every
namaste,
but specifically saying like, let's wish peace on every living human being, and I'm like, it's just, I can't do that. I mean, I don't want to harm or kill someone, but it's like, what about these like rapist priest or these whatever, like there's just people that I can't wish peace upon.
Sure.
So I do kind of trip out on that, because there is a fine line, especially when it comes to like animal rights stuff, and like if you see someone abusing animals, like I don't think I could contain myself, I guess.
Sure.
That's just.
No, I understand that. I mean, I try to, speaking for myself, I do actually try and follow that line, peace to all people.
Yeah.
Even because I try and look at, you talk about rapists and stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of come at it. It's completely wrong. The act itself, of course, there's no getting around.
Yeah.
It. But I try to understand the psychology a little bit, because I think unless you deal with the psychology, you will never deal with the problem on top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously, any kind of sexual abuse of somebody who's like, who doesn't have the same power or is powerless, there's a psychology to that.
Yeah, of course.
Until you understand the psychology, you will never deal with
the
situation.
That I totally am in agreement with you. It's like locking people up in prison and getting no rehabilitation. But like, this might be a pretty obvious or maybe not very accurate example. But like, let's say Donald Trump. I mean, it's hard to find that I think he's a human being that has no empathy. So it's hard to find a justification for someone not to fuck that guy up, you know what I'm saying? Like, at some point you're just like, nah, you're done, dude. Like,
well, it seems like he has a very, like, his personality traits definitely lend himself to not possessing any empathy at all,
But do you look at it like, where did it happen in his lineage?
I mean, I don't look at it like, actually, you suggested like, he needs to be fucking killed or something like that.
Yeah,
no, I actually don't. Even though everything he ever did, and I know about his early days when his dad, around New York, basically driving people out of social housing for his own projects, union busting at his casinos and stuff like. I know all that stuff, but I still try to distance myself from thinking, they should be fucking killed. In a human, on a global scale, I just don't think it solves anything.
I mean, I guess you could blame capitalism, right?
Well, there's all sorts of things, but it's like.
Well, I think all sorts of things kind of end up coming down to that one thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that this like war in Ukraine is obviously a focal point right now, but there are many other wars going on that people aren't just talking about, because Ukraine is actually a very convenient focal point right now. But there's a situation in the Yemen, where people where the Saudi Arabian Air Force, vastly armed to the teeth by British companies and trained by British companies, actually, are just murdering people carte blanche, because they know they can, because they know the eyes of the world aren't on them, So it's absolutely atrocious what's going on in Ukraine, but it's equally atrocious in other places where it's not, where the eyes of the world just aren't on it.
Yeah.
People choose not to look at it. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but that seems to me to be the case.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a question of stopping these wars in the first place. I don't know how you were doing. I know it sounds a bit naive.
Yeah.
But I think humankind has to take a long, hard look at itself and understand that it shouldn't be the first resort to reach for a weapon, whether that's a gun, whether it's a tank, whether it's a warship, whether it's anything like that. I think that should be, it should never be any resort as far as I'm concerned. And I also think that the arms industry as itself should be completely, I don't know how you would ever arrive at that point, but just should be something of history.
Sure.
It should not exist anymore.
But that's just, I mean, I'm not trying to talk shit, but that's a naive thing to say.
That's what I said myself. I
Yeah.
think it is naive, but it's something that I wish for,
But do you not think, Barn, that the war in Ukraine is something deeper than,
Yeah.
than
definitely.
what's going on there?
Well, Putin's trying to reconstruct the USSR. That's speculation,
definitely.
right? Yeah.
that and a few other things, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, it's many things.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't underestimate the complexity of it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think that, and this is a general point, when you have access to weapons, when you have access to arsenals of weapons, well, there's your tool, that you're going to go and do really horrible shit to people.
So there's
with,
two things. There's like the fact that peace is always cheaper
Yeah.
as an option, but there are people that own these arms
for
companies
sure.
that can make shit tons of
War
money.
is big business.
Big
as the
business,
saying goes,
yeah.
Well, you destroyed to rebuild, don't you?
Yeah. That as well.
Yeah.
Shane said. I mean, imagine the contracts
Yeah.
that companies are going to get rebuilding.
Yep.
Like Ukraine. It
Yeah.
happened. It happened in Berlin. In Germany after the war.
Yeah.
U.S. companies
Yeah.
went in and made a fucking killing
Yeah.
after the reconstruction.
I mean, it happened in the Gulf War or in Iraq, Afghanistan.
So I think the arms industry has a lot to answer for, and I think somehow there has to be some kind of consensus around the world that, these profits can be foregone, and we can leave this in the past, That's why I've always been anti-gun.
Sure.
I'm completely anti-gun,
But let's tie this
I
into
want
the
one.
wishing peace onto everybody, like, because then we look at these, like, maybe we could debate, or not we, but like whatever, humanity can debate the consequences of what the priest that raped children had. We could look at the lineage of that, but with these owners of these arms, these gun or weapons manufacturers, like, what do we do with those people? That's the fucking $1 million, $1 billion question, $1 trillion question.
Yeah, I mean, but so then, stop them being manufactured in the first place.
Yeah, but
I mean?
they're not going to let
No,
people are not
I
going to
know.
forfeit their power
This
and their
I
money.
know.
Yeah.
This I'm well aware of, but I'm just giving.
Yeah.
I'm giving, I guess, a perspective. you
Yeah.
know.
Maybe we need like a what was that TV show? Mr. Robot. Did you guys ever see
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
I mean, maybe
yeah.
we need that kind of like
Yeah.
economic
Shutdown,
global
yeah,
collapse.
meltdown. Yeah.
Because I wonder what would happen if we could level everything. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's all like wishful thinking, I guess. But like, because it would affect. There would be negative consequences of something like that as well.
Yeah.
But fuck, at some point, if we're gonna try to survive, we have to.
Yeah.
Something has to give.
I mean, I've always liked the collective model, where everybody offers something to the good of everybody else.
Yeah.
It's like the kibbutz system, in Israel. I mean, I could say things about the government there, but I won't. But it's like, but the actual system of the kibbutz, kind of the original commune in a lot of ways. I've always liked that model. I always thought it was quite good. Nobody gets left behind.
Yeah.
Everybody has something to offer.
Yeah.
And if you're sick or infirm or whatever, you don't get treated like a leper and pushed into the shadows. Everybody has something to offer.
I mean, would that fall under the umbrella of some of socialism, I guess, or
It's been adopted to read that to make it fit to modern politics, but the actual structure itself is a good one.
So it's like a true commune.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true commune. You know, I mean, we could also talk about political science, and there has never actually been in the pure understanding of the term of Marxism. You know, Karl Marx and Engels.
Yep.
There has never been a communist state, actually. Never.
Ever.
Never.
Yeah.
Because Russia was state capitalist.
Oh yeah.
It was the people, the Soviet and
Yep.
the people at the top had all the money, and then everybody, it kind of trickled downwards.
Sure. Yeah.
And the peasants at the bottom
Yep.
literally, well, starved or had nothing. You know, so that's not equality. It's not an egalitarian system. You know.
And neither is neither is the U.S. a democracy.
Nothing is really. You
So
know,
it's-
nothing in modern politics or political structures. None of it has any egalitarian.
Yeah. Fuck. We just opened up this huge can of worms.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
Sorry,
it's fine.
if you give me the door, I'll always step through it.
I mean, let's see what it's. I mean, there's so many things we could dive into. The politics thing is gnarly, and I was hesitant to.
To me, it's not even politics. This is the thing. Politics. Well, to me, it's not. It's human issues. You know, people, oh yeah, you're a really political band. Well, yes and no. You know, well, what do you mean no? You know? Well, because these are human issues. Forget the modern terms of left and right and stuff like that. These transcend that, in my opinion. You know, these are human issues.
Yeah.
You know, the issue of whether a woman can get the right to healthcare to go and get a termination, that's a human issue. That's not politics.
And
you know?
and it's up to artists to reflect the society that they live in and set things straight by having a narrative. So it's weird because people choose to sing about. I always reference like. And this is no offense to Justin Timberlake, but, you know, he'll choose to sing about, like, bringing sexy back. And it's like, I personally would love to just sing a pop song like that, but I can't. I don't have it in me. I can't write like that. I don't think like that.
No, everybody's got to have their own purpose. But that's different for everybody.
I wonder what that purpose is, to sing something
Yeah.
like that. Or to
Well,
go,
yeah, I
you know, like,
suppose,
or
but
to,
yeah.
But so there's like, I can't remember exactly the quote, but Ian MacKay said something about, someone was asking him about some Fugazi lyrics. And I guess they kind of had topics that were about pro-choice, and they said, why I might be fucking this up, and if anybody hears this, or if Ian hears this, I'm sorry, but this is what I had like
Just paraphrase.
yeah, so like he was saying, like, the person was asking him this question, why do you have another song about being pro-choice? And he's like, well, if the problem still exists, we need to speak about it again, and we need to say it again until it gets corrected, until women's rights, you know, are have the freedom to choose. And I was like, oh, that's great. That's cool. And so then I, for myself, end up writing like similar topics. I'm like, should we sing about this again? And it's like, well, yeah, it's still a fucking issue. It's still totally relevant.
I mean, it's not a one-stop shop. You know, that's why I think with Napalm, you know, when I approach an album, for me, it's got to be current. It can't be general. Because if it's you can sing about some really good stuff, but if it's too generalized and it doesn't have a specific point in time that people can hook onto, I personally feel psychologically they're going to be less interested than unless you're providing a window into the here and the now as much as you can.
So when you approach lyrics, you're very specific to what this thing is about.
Very current.
Yeah.
Try to be very current. Yeah, and not just go, oh, I'll do another anti-war song. Well, there's not a war on at the moment. Oh, okay, all right. Right, yeah.
But,
You know,
but you're still anti-war, so
Yeah, of
you know.
course.
I guess. So for the listener, the chances on them grabbing onto something that's very specific to what's happening seems greater.
You know, and like part of the last album, the Throes of Joy one, was because part of it's only part of it. You know, in Europe we had a groundswell of very kind of ultra-conservative kind of direction of travel where, you know, like all the rights of recognition that, you know, LGBTQ plus people had secured on the European mainland were starting to go fucking backwards. You know, and me as a person who is heterosexual, but I still feel that I solidarity with other human beings. You know, so I felt I've got to talk about this.
Yeah,
you know, I can't not talk about it.
Yeah.
You know? And then there was refugees. The whole point about refugee crisis, which to me is not a crisis, it's the movement of people.
Yeah.
And everybody has the right, or should have the right to move, you know.
Yeah, it's the terminology.
Yeah. And I was thinking this, There's always been a thing for me, this whole thing about human beings somehow being illegal
Yeah.
because of they
Yeah.
are as they are,
Yeah.
you know, in their situation. I think that's
Yeah.
fucking absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know?
And not to make light of that, but it is interesting. Like here in San Diego, being a border city to Mexico, there's a lot of go back to Mexico to any kind of immigrant coming over here. Like the racist rhetoric is rampant, and it always has been. But there was a thing where people would start saying go back to Europe to the white people, and I was like, fuck, that's. Not only is that just funny and like has wit and intellect in it, but it holds truth. You know, I mean, myself, I'm a European mutt. Like I'm illegal. Then like that's just that's how it goes. You know, I think that the terminology is usually when there's oppression attached to it. There's a great flaw. Pick whatever that flaw is. But it's
totally. It's it's always puzzled me, you know, the way that some people are supposedly legitimate purely because of where they were born, and other people aren't because of where they were born, and it's just like, how is this even, you know, without the ethics or lack of ethics, just the logic of it, you're kind of like, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it doesn't compute almost, you know.
Yeah. Man, so you guys, this has been like fully gnarly subject matter, so I appreciate you.
That's all right.
But I don't know, is there anything you want to
Shane might want to say some stuff.
Do you guys want
to? I don't want to leave him on
No, I'm just kind of listening. I sort of interject at certain
Yeah,
points,
yeah.
really.
minds are melting. My mind is melting. I'm just like, fuck, we're going down this wormhole. You know. But I don't know, is there anything you guys want to talk about or have anything to say, or you want to like vent, or I don't know.
No, I mean, you know,
It's nice to be playing live again.
yeah, it is nice. Yeah, it's a shock to the system a little bit.
I know.
In some
It is.
ways, but yeah. I mean, the first gigs when we came back, you know, I throughout the lockdowns, and we had about a year of it, didn't we? If you take the actual lockdown, really severe lockdown, I mean, I kept myself like fit, you know, and stuff. Try to be ready for when we eventually could go back. But even so, them first few gigs, you're like, fuck, you know, it's just 10 minutes in, you know, you've got like an hour to go or whatever, just under, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah. But it's crazy too, because I do feel like people maybe started to take things for granted a little bit, and now they're like, everyone's like, fucking, this is happening again, you know, and maybe everyone's kind of like rejuvenated. I hope, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the tour we did with Guar, there was definitely more excitement and a bit more energy in the crowd in some ways, because sometimes, I mean, you know, you can get it happens in Europe a lot where crowds get spoiled by the amount of bands that are coming through in some ways. And
Totally.
I think for me it's a little strange in the sense that obviously us having done one tour, this tour now, that's two main tours, and then our own assorted gigs around and about, we're almost into the mode again of what it was before.
Yeah.
But of course, a lot of the world isn't.
No.
They're still like. So I'm like, sometimes I have to check myself and go, it's really not what it, you know. Still, you know.
Well, spending so much time at home.
Yeah.
I mean, I did loads of music, and then you get quite accustomed to being at home. And the first time going out again was a bit
It's so strange.
strange. But then once you're out, it's like,
Even though the first gig was just up the road, wasn't it? Really, you know, it was a Bloodstock thing.
Yeah. But it should be quite nervous.
I mean, man, that first gig. I mean, I suffer from stage fright anyway. You know, I've always had it. I get it really bad sometimes.
Wow.
You know, and before this gig, I just, you know, people are trying to talk to me, and I've just got no recognition of anything, and I'm just like, internally, my whole system's just falling apart. You know, and I'm just like trying to stay focused, but I'm so anxious, you know.
I mean, yesterday, it's been 2 weeks since we played some shows in England, but yesterday was probably because we flew such a long way as well.
Yeah.
It was kind of out of body experience in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, the first festival we did last year was like the build-up. We were quite nervous, and then you sat backstage, and obviously you wait for a while. Here we are waiting.
Yeah. But you kept thinking it was going to get canceled, right? I kept thinking that too. I'm like, fuck. We played our first show like out of the pandemic, and I remember being at the venue thinking like, I just kind of feel like we had already done sound check, and I was like, it's not going to happen. Something's going to cancel. It just seemed bizarre.
I mean, we had a tour actually that was planned for around this time with I think it was MDC, wasn't it, Shane? MDC,
Yeah.
Dr. No, and just different bands hopping on, and that just kind of disintegrated a little bit. I think the sad thing is that the smaller kind of punk tours are still a bit, they're kind of collapsing in on themselves, because I guess logistically people have more to lose if you're doing them kind of tours.
I guess,
if you're
yeah.
like fucking banging out all this money and everything goes south.
Yeah.
So it's a shame. I was felt quite a little bit sad, disappointed, when that fell through. But we have something. We're in a fortunate position. We got something to back it up.
Sure.
So we can still kind of get into the groove.
Yeah.
Start to get into the groove.
Yeah.
And as things open up a bit more, hopefully those kind of tours will come back into the fray.
Yeah. Well, I'm psyched you guys are here. It's great that it's happening, and I'm psyched that we get to play with you guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, thanks. Well, we can wrap it up here. We gotta go to the venue.
Sure.
There you have it, episode 23 of the Cult and Culture podcast. We'd like to say thanks to Napalm Death for being on our show. Shane and Barney, you guys are awesome. And check them out on tour. It seems like they're constantly on tour. Check them out. And also feel free to check out all of our previous episodes. Streaming on 31G's SoundCloud or Apple Podcast or whatever other crummy streaming service you hear your podcast at.
Cult and Culture is a Ruinous Media podcast, proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Heartwork Coffee, Fender, and Diodario.
Planet B.